President-elect Donald Trump's proposed tariffs have begun having their desired effect on other nations, including some of our ostensible allies. Donald Trump said they are necessary to punish China, Mexico, and Canada for aiding criminal gangs. He said tariffs would remain in place until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Our neighbor to the north is reeling. In a recent blow, Trudeau's longtime ally and finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, resigned. The resignation comes as Freeland, who chaired a cabinet committee on U.S. relations, was set to deliver the fall economic statement and likely announce border security measures designed to help Canada avoid Trump's tariffs. President-elect Donald Trump has threatened to oppose a 25% tax on all products entering the U.S. from Canada and from Mexico. In her letter of resignation, Freeland said Canadians know when we are working for them, and they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. She added that Mr. Trudeau is engaging in costly political gimmicks.
Late Monday, Trump reacted on Truth Social. He wrote, "The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns, or was fired, from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. Her behaviour was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed." To replace Freeland, Trudeau swiftly named longtime ally and close friend Dominic LeBlanc. On Monday, another senior cabinet member within Mr. Trudeau's party, Sean Fraser, announced he would resign as housing minister. So it looks like the Canadian Prime Minister's lieutenants are abandoning him.
Prime Minister Trudeau did make a trip to Mar-a-Lago last month in a sort of preemptive strike. Trudeau assured Trump of a border crackdown, but Canadian law enforcement officials acknowledged they are limited in what they can do to stop southbound migrants. Now, with all this turmoil, can Trudeau himself survive? Will his reign as Prime Minister come to some end? And will Mexico and China similarly be impacted? That is the question. I saw a great deal of speculation yesterday on social media, largely from anti-Trudeau conservative news sources, that he was in jeopardy. Do you know what the situation might be, Niall, being more connected to the politics of our northern neighbors than I am?
Global correspondent, because I have an accent. No.
Yes, indeed.
So Trudeau's approval ratings are very, very low. When he first came to power years ago, they were in the mid-60s. Now, in one survey in June, they were around 28%. So he's in pretty serious trouble. Now, the thing in relation to Chrystia Freeland that is important is she seems to have wanted a more confrontational approach to Trump. There are other domestic things I'll come to in a second, but she wanted a more aggressive pushback at what she considers America First economic nationalism. Trudeau seems not inclined to do that, and as you mentioned during your part of the read there, Trudeau made that sort of homage to Mar-a-Lago to try to get on Trump's good side. I'm not sure that there was anything really in concrete terms expected from it, but it was intended to create, good vibes. Chrystia Freeland doesn't seem to think that is the way forward. She, in addition, not to get in too deep into the domestic economics of Canada, she basically thinks that Trudeau is doing stuff, giving money away to try to buoy up his approval ratings. And she, as a Liberal, but as someone who doesn't want sort of spendthrift ways, seems to have an issue with that.
Trudeau has been in power for a long time.
9 years.
Some of this is just the inevitable eventual decline in popularity that leaders in parliamentary systems seem to eventually suffer.
Right.
Although in some ways parliamentary systems have been more stable than our own system, which has tossed out presidents now in rapid succession. So I don't think it's surprising Trudeau has come to this. I mean, I would argue that it's probably a good thing or even the best way forward maybe to have some kind of friendly relationship with Donald Trump and at least signal a desire to work with him on those fronts so that we end up not having these tariffs become a long-lasting part of our economic policy. We do not want tariffs to be a long-lasting economic part of our economic policy. They will be harmful for the countries they are placed on. They are harmful for consumers here. They inevitably result in prices rising. They should be, at best, a means to an end, a diplomatic tool, and but we don't want to see them become permanent.
Well, we don't generally want to see them become permanent. I think part of the debate, though, is what approach toward Trump is better to to defang the threat of tariffs. For example, down in Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum is adopting a more confrontational approach, in essence threatening retaliation if Trump goes ahead with this tariff plan. Now, that obviously is getting into a very much, butting heads with him. That tends to create an escalation, but Sheinbaum is obviously hoping that it ultimately dissuades him from the tariffs themselves. Trudeau is taking a very different approach, wanting, as we say, to sort of be on his good side, to kind of sweet talk him out of it. Carrot versus stick, Chrystia Freeland somewhere in the middle. Chrystia Freeland, incidentally, since we often talk about the media, was firstly a person of prominence as a journalist. She worked for the Financial Times and Reuters. I remember her being on cable news shows here quite regularly. So perhaps you have an appointment as the Finance Minister of Canada in the future, Robby.
I don't think I would be very good at the job of Finance Minister of Canada,
the Liberal Party,
being
anyway.
Not an expert in finances or in Canada or a member of the Liberal Party, but maybe there's some comms role for me in some conservative government somewhere. I was going to say that, for all Trump's, the way he is perceived as this uniquely combative figure, he does seem to make peace fairly easily when the opponent has to be open to that, has to make the pilgrimage, has to bow down. But then he seems pretty magnanimous. He seems to easily let things go. He's done this with Zuckerberg, with other political rivals like DeSantis and so on. Everyone in the Republican Party is someone who at some point said something deeply, hysterically nasty about him, and he doesn't hold grudges if they admit they're wrong.
Well, if they admit they're wrong, and
if they admit they're wrong, they say they're sorry, then it's over.
Well, and kind of grovel to him. That's the
little bit of groveling.
That's the third. But Lindsey Graham, for example, would be your classic example of somebody who there was a lot of bitterness about back in 2016. But he has become such a sort of Trump acolyte, really, for the most part, that Trump naturally doesn't hold any grudges against that because he has won. And
think of the nasty things Elon and Trump said about each other for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Trump savaged Elon as desperate for electric car subsidies, that kind of thing. And now they're besties. Now Elon is the shadow president.
Yes, having spent, $100 million or so trying to get Trump elected. So that's part of it, for sure.
Well spent to have that level of influence from his perspective, probably.
Probably, but,
People have joked, like, why did Trump even buy, I saw this tweet from someone, Elon's such an idiot. He bought Twitter and he reduced its value, and all he got in exchange was total control over our government.
No, I think it is an in-kind contribution in a way, is Elon's ownership of X, formerly Twitter.
More to come still today on Rising. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.